From UBN Studios, you're listening to Unsugarcoated with Aalia, bringing you interviews with public figures and inspirational people speaking on self-improvement with empowering themes. And I'm your host, Aalia Lanius. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite social good talk show, podcast, all things social good. How are you today? I hope you're well, and I hope that you're excited to hear the conversation that we're going to have today. As always, we are continuing our season theme of emotional intelligence. It is specifically on the aspect of entrepreneurship and business. What do I know about business? Well, let's see. I have been in business and an entrepreneur since I was 22 years old. More importantly, I actually had a biological mother who was a role model as an entrepreneur and owned her own business. So me being 9 years old and sitting in her office and proofreading her pamphlets and sitting in the car when she would put flyers for her business were so impactful that later on, when I grew up and I had a business of my own, I was able to identify the principles of success and also the principles of not having success, right? So those do exist. Like everything, there is a recipe, there is a formula. And at the end of it, you know, if you're baking a cake, if you put the right ingredients in, you're going to have a fantastic cake. If you put the wrong ingredients, probably not so much. And it might just go in the garbage. But we don't want that for you and your business. Many people know that through the pandemic, we had a huge surge in people, what we call the Great Resignation. So a lot of people recognized, I value my life so much that I don't think sitting in the car 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day to get to a job that doesn't really pay me what I'm worth, treat me the way I want to be treated. I am going to exit and I'm going to build something on my own, because guess what? I know how to treat myself, right? That's our thinking. But as we've also recently seen, a lot of those people have had to go back to work. And it hasn't been that easy, because you know what? It's not that easy. There is a reason why a good portion of people who start businesses within the first 5 years do not succeed in that. And I want to say that it's okay, because not everything is intended to stay. And in that process, hopefully you fail forward. But we're going to try and give you some tips today that are going to keep you from doing that. And even right now, that's the other thing. I've owned businesses in 2 of the past recessions that we've had. And if you're not aware, we are in a recession now. So we have this down economy. What about the people who are still saying, I want to get into business for myself? How do I do that? What should I be looking for? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So with that, we're also going to talk about, as another important component of the emotional intelligence aspect, we're going to talk about self-regulation and how that is very much needed when we're talking about owning a business. And that's because self-regulation involves being able to control impulses and delay gratification, as well as being able to adapt to changing circumstances. In other words, a solutions-oriented person. Because genuinely, when you are in business for yourself and things go wrong, what's my saying? When shit hits the fan, it does not disperse evenly. If you've been in business, you know what that means. And furthermore, it's not just about the nuts and bolts of starting a business. In entrepreneurship, it requires a deep understanding of emotional intelligence. People operating from that level of understanding know that to truly connect with customers, employees, and partners, you need empathy, self-awareness, and a willingness to adapt and change. Our guest is someone who's been there. They've co-written a book that's packed full of practical advice, real-world examples, and actionable strategies for building a business from scratch, even when the economy is tough. Aaron Michael Sanchez, a host on ABC News Radio since 2016, where he hosts the morning show every weekday at 8 a.m. He's also an executive producer of Hollywood Social Lounge. We're excited to have Aaron join us today to discuss his co-authored book, How to Start a Business in a Down Economy, and the Role of Emotional Intelligence in Entrepreneurship. Let's welcome Aaron Michael Sanchez to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm a huge fan. For all those wondering, I'm a huge fan ever since I met you on our show to talk about the book that you did. And I remember that was kind of like, people were like, oh my God, I'm inspired. Oh my God. And then you took it next level. I didn't know you're going to have your own show. And I'm like, okay, I'm now a fan of you. So
Aw.
great job. And, I saw a couple episodes. I said, oh, my God, I'm inspired. So if you haven't seen any of the other episodes, you got to go check it out. And I follow you on Instagram. And I love that you use the media that's there, that everyone, please share, please tweet, please, get it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. Huge. I follow you as well. You're an amazing person. You share your family, you share your heart, you share your work.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just always great to be able to continue working together and lift each other up and share what each other are doing. So when you were like, I wrote a book, I'm like, oh yeah, there we go.
But what people don't know, when I had another show, I produced it with Jesse Torres, who's the author, and he and we were talking about it, and he says, hey, we should do a book. And then we had my mother in because we were at a studio right near what Marvel is now, next to a place where Cameron actually shoots over in Manhattan Beach. And it never happened. And I'm like, and then years later, life hits, as you say. And then I said, you know what, let's put this out there. Coronavirus hit. People are not making sense. People are closing. Starbucks closed at 3:00 when we were actually proofing this. He tweeted out, got a lot of response. But I'm like, what Starbucks closed the inside at 3:00 and expects to stay open years later? There are businesses not making sense.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you. And I'm thankful that you were so inspired to then put out a tool for other people to at least have another resource, which we need, right? Because as I said, and it's not easy to start a business. Tell us a little bit about your background and experience in starting businesses.
So we come from the strategy part of it. But what we also come from is, hey, how do we get you there? Kind of like a lot of people are kind of revamping things like Brian Tracy and other ones, which say, help us help you with your business so that you can go far and long. But this book is a series of 8. The first one's really made to get everyone to go, okay, I want to do it now, and versus later, because we have so many people. I'll give you an example. They go, oh, I wrote a script, or oh, I want to do a film, but it's always the I want to, and then years later you meet up with them and you go, so did you do it? And they go, no, and you go, so how do you do it now? So it's very, it's what some would say, well, it's not real big. I go, you don't want big, you want to the point, get it done, get in your head, move on. Go.
I love that that's your inspiration, wanting to help people. What do you hope to be the main thing readers take from it?
Honestly, at the end, they say, I want to start a business. It's very simple, because there's a lot of people that don't understand how to get a loan, back to what you're saying, how to qualify for a loan. And then they hear the big L word. They go, forget it. I'm not ready. And I go, no, you have people do that for you. And they go, well, I don't have any money to start up. I go, well, then just start a little. That's the first 3 chapters. Save $3,000. If you can save $3,000, you're good to go. Do it, but make a sale. Don't do all the production, all the, you got to make a sale to prove to an investor when he meets you or she meets you, or a conglomerate of investors, or money that you want to get from family. You could say, I already sold this amount. Make a sale within your first 3 months of whatever product, service, and or specialty, as we put it. And then you'll be able to prove to someone and yourself, but mainly to someone else, because they're very results driven. If you have an idea, it's a great idea. But if you have sales, like Shark Tank, everybody loves Shark Tank, right? But they go, how many sales do you have? They say, what did you do? They go, great idea, but what are your net profits?
You hit on something that's very key. Is there a demand for your product or service in the current market? Right? That's, I think, sometimes the biggest. I to your point, yes, a lot of people come with me. They're like, I've got this great idea. It should just, especially because we deal a lot with more film and TV. It's like, I've got this script. It's the best script in the whole world. It needs to be out. But how do you qualify that, right?
Yeah.
So in your experience, when you have somebody who's saying, okay, is there a demand for this product? How do they really qualify that? How do they make sure that what they have available is something people want?
Buy a sale. Back to what you just said. You have that little, and I don't know if you saw it. You'll probably see it later when you watch it. That little, and you did that thing that people go, yeah, but they want to be nice about it. But it's that little subtle thing that you go, no, they love it. They said it, but did they mean it? And we talk about that in the book. We say, don't trust the people around you, because they're the worst ones that tell you the truth. And if they tell you the truth, you might get discouraged. So go to somebody else who doesn't know you, who's not going to steal your idea, and ask them what they think of your product, service, or specialty. That's how you qualify it first for you.
Correct.
Now, a lot of people go, yeah, but everybody loves my product. But will they buy it? That's the next thing. If you say, okay, it's now, and you say it's affordable, but you say, this is how much it is. Do you want one? If they say yes, now they do it for a multitude of things. To be nice to you, to throw you away, to say, get out of here, kid. Or to say, in essence, you know what, I like it and I can use it, whatever it is, but you got to get your first sale. Now, you don't spend that money. You put it in the bank and you say, okay, that is the sale made. Now you make more sales on that, and you know who your target is at some point. But you got to ask like at least a minimum, I say always, of at least 8 to 12 people, maybe 18, maybe 20, but get over your first hump. Get it to people that are not going to steal your idea, that don't have money. That's number one. Take it to a waitress. Take it to someone that you know, maybe you're at the store and you go, hey, you pull it out. You go, what do you think of this? And they honestly will be like, huh, because they're always thinking of something, right? Everybody has an idea, and then somebody goes, wait, I have the same idea. Awesome. You know, but inspire and then get your sale. You have to get the sale. If you get the sale, you can prove to investors. Once you get 30 sales, 40 sales or more, but I say start with at least 30 sales. Then you go to the next level. Ma, pa, can I get some money? Because look, I sold this.
Right.
If you just have an idea without any sale, there's no proof. And that's how, you know, even big guys say, yeah, that's what we want to see. We just want to see it was sold, that there's a market for it, and there are people that want to buy it.
You know, competitive advantage, finding something that makes you stand out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, I used to be a licensee with Metro PCS. For those of my audience who have forgotten, I was one of the original dealers, the first 10 dealers that were allowed to launch in the LA market with Metro PCS. I was one of them.
That's big, by the way. Can I just say that? So you're a seller of Metro PCS. So you had a store.
Yeah, 30.
I could go in. Wow. Okay. So I could go in and I could buy something. I have to go and make a payment every single time, but you could pay it on the contract, but it's month to month. So I don't know where they're at now, but you were, you know, you made, see, that's where I say, and I always say, if you have one store, have another store, have another store, have another store, but have it managed by good people.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
then train they to have their own store with your brand.
Right.
Because you were under their little, like, you know, whatever they do, you have to do.
Well, you know, yeah. Well, and I think that for every person, so it was interesting because everyone had a certain flexibility in the way you marketed your
Right.
products with Metro. We, you know, ethically we're not supposed to change the prices. We never did because we wanted to always be seen as not somebody just focused on making $1 off of our client right there, because actually we didn't have contracts. There was no contract. So what we made in any transaction was simply off the point of sale, right? But I would often take less on that point of sale to show people this wasn't about money. This is about longevity. This is about you coming back with your tío, your grandma, your cousin, and being like, this is a store you need to buy a phone from, right?
Yeah.
That long term. And I remember being very creative in marketing because I recognize, to your point, psychology matters. When you can qualify something, so there's the competitive advantage of my product or service can save you money, X amount of dollars, right? Again, to the point, I had that Metro during the 2008 and 2002 financial crisis, right?
Got it.
There's
Which
a
made
reason
sense.
why our business flourished, because people wanted to save money from Verizon,
100%.
transfer over. So while people were making jokes about Metro piece of SHIT, we were laughing all the way to the bank. And I'm not trying to be funny. That's just really what happened.
And it can still happen now.
Right.
So many prices right now. Back to something that you're saying, and I say this, I say prices are outrageous. Everybody's
Yes.
using the I word. I say stop using that word because it's not normal. We're going back to the days, and you mentioned it, and I'm glad you said it. In the book, I say this, but I said it at a time when it wasn't popular in 2020. I said, we're in a recession. You guys don't get it. But people are like, no. And then you see one's going, no, because they don't want to admit it. But we were already in recession based on 2018, 2019, 2020. Then coronavirus pushed it so like in a direction that everyone was like, oh, no. And we're still dealing with that. We're still dealing with hostels. We're still dealing with, and we're still dealing with bills of people that did recover. People aren't talking about that. We're dealing with foreclosures. So banks are like, hey, we get to recover that, meaning that they're going to foreclose on you because now that's all over. People are raising rent. They're raising funds, and they're raising. Banks are now going, what are we going to do? Because you have a huge fallout there. When Wall Street crashed in 1930s, it really started in the 1920s.
Right.
But then they had a fallout, then the Great Depression. When the Great Depression happened, that's where we're at today. And if you understand where we're at that today, you understand there was a lot of business that is now alive now, which started in the recession and in the Depression with people that saved their money and are made smart, kind of like just ideas, but have it sold, have somebody buy it, but back to your idea about Metro PCS, I love it because there's a market for that at cheap price. Because I can tell you right now, Verizon, you guys got to come back down. We're paying like $300 on a plan of just like 3 devices. And I'm like, how did that happen overnight? People are paying more and they're not calling it out. And people going, well, government, are you going to do anything? But at the end of the day, you can control you, spend a little, invest it, save $3,000, do your own business, but make sure it sells. Make sure your product sells, period, end of story. And if you have a service, even better, because a service, if you understand, hey, people need this, if people want your service and they're going to pay you, have them pay you at the front, not like, oh, write me a check later, because people renege on that, but have them do it at the beginning. That way you can prove to an investor when you want to go big or you want to start hiring people. And that's really what a loan entails. It entails what they call it the big BP word, which people hate, business plan, because people don't want to get all that down. There's plans like this, but you got to make it simple for the person that goes, dude, I just have an idea, I don't want all the because nobody likes writing, nobody likes reading, nobody likes so you got to get the people that can help you.
And the tools. I mean, look, ChatGPT, hate to throw that out there again, but I think for people who do struggle, not that they're not capable, I want to make this clear, but who are bandwidth, right? Like me, I mean, if you're a parent and you've got kids and then you're, and you sit down, and to your point, oh my God, I'm exhausted to think of how I'm going to write this business plan out.
And what, can I help you? It's boring. To the people that know it, like you're a professional, you know it. And the big money, they know it. Have that ready to go. But to the person that's like the little kid who's 11 or 12, I have to do a business plan. Like, prior mother helped her or somebody helped them. But to a teen who's like, even to like the mid 20s and 30s are like, forget it, I'm done. They give up so easy. And I've seen this. Right. So you got to be like, all right with that and say, okay, I can help you because you have a good idea. I'm not going to steal it because I get a little weird about that. And then you say, okay, this is what you need here, here, and here. Just answer these 3 questions and you're good to go. And at the end of the book, it actually has a few of those questions and it's very simple, but that's what every big bank actually asks. Right. They just ask it the wrong way.
Sure. So when it comes to entrepreneurs building resilience and adaptability in the face of economic challenges, what do you recommend?
Oh, perfect. Okay. We talk about there's this thing, some people know it and some people don't. I don't want to discourage anyone. But they say every business, a certain percentage, will fail within a certain amount of years.
Yes.
Okay? Get that out of your head. That's number one. You don't want it to fail, obviously. But I say prepare not for like the 3-year plan, prepare for the 100-year plan. If you prepare for the 100-year plan, you'll make sense. In other words, think of several of the companies that that you buy. They've probably been in business anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50 to maybe over 100 years. There's very few that are 100 years that brand that. But the easiest one is always something you drink. Think of that. And then say, okay, how did they start? And you go, but they're so big. I can't be that. You can be eventually, but you got to lay the groundwork. So back to what you're saying, resilience. You create resilience by making it affordable for the common. That's number one. Some people have high products, right? We see things at CES. We see things all the time that we go, that's a great idea. How much is it? They go, oh, and you go, huh?
Right.
$300 for something that you go, that's more like a $30 item. I'm not going to buy that. And you kind of walk away. There's no resilience there. It's a item that someone will buy at $300, but the majority no. So you build resilience by selling to the common. Then you could have a product that's $300 to the elite, as you would say, or the people that have that money, that have it as expendable. Right now, a lot of people don't have an expendable, especially for like a massager, right? That could be a $30 item. My point is this. People right now, the way you create resilience is sell a product, minimum, have several different products. That $300 item should have a $30 item as well. Maybe not all the, that it has at the 300, but at the 30, they can get the majority of people now, because people do not have that 300 to spend. Earbuds, right? I love earbuds. I bought a $70 item versus a $300 item. Why? Because I can spend that somewhere else, right? Even very rich money are very cheap on that.
Oh my goodness. You say something that makes me, as a business person, this is one of my mantras. I save money where I can so I can spend money where I want to.
Oh, I love it.
And to your point, like even LV, Louis Vuitton, they have like that ultra line that, most people can't afford. And then like the regular stuff that the regular Louis Vuitton.
Which is still the same. But
it is. But I mean, they're putting it.
It started very Euro.
Yes. But they do that, to your point. Like even the big companies, you think, no, they're not doing that. But they are. And the reason for is because, of course, they're developing something that can withstand the test of time and different economic time periods
Bingo.
as well.
I want to stress this. Although we use the R word and we use the I word and we use, recession, inflation at the same time, we use the depression word. I'm sure that's coming up soon. We use the bubble word. We use all those words. There still is a way to recover. And that's why I say invest when it's low. People will negotiate. Some people, they don't, whatever, you let them go. But people need to fill up spaces. How many places have we seen are empty, right? For lease, right?
Oh my goodness, yes.
During coronavirus.
Well,
That's
even
opportunity.
Now, still.
That's opportunity. You say, look, you're not renting it out. And if they rent it out, fine. But you say, look, I'll rent it at this price. This I can do. But then you got to see it through, meaning you got to be there. I saw one place, it was just a card place, and they sell like Pokemon to kids and stuff. And I say, okay, but be there all the time. Recently, and I went by there, and I saw kind of the writing on the wall. It's a husband-wife team. But I saw a behavior that was like, I'm right, you're wrong. And I'm like, man, you're going to fail. And then instead of hiring an employee, he closed at the worst hour possible on a Saturday when he could have like people buy. You never want to be closed as a business. How are you going to pay the rent? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. It's funny. Actually, one of my stores used to be in the Santa Ana Main Place Mall. Shout out Santa Ana. And if I was a minute late, I paid a fee. I paid a fine. Like, it was like $250. And I mean, I remember one time one of my employees was like, I left my keys at home. I flew from Huntington Beach to Santa Ana in like 10 minutes. Walk in, like, I had to make sure that store was open. But to your point, I understand that it was the reason why the mall did that. You don't want to be closed once you're allegedly supposed to be open for business. Secondary to that, something that you brought up and I think is very important is people need to understand that they can advocate for themselves. They go to look at a spot, maybe they're offering it for something. A lot of people don't realize commercial, at least when I used to rent commercial spaces, for every year that I had a lease, I got a month free of rent, right? So commercial space leasing is different from traditional residential. And I don't think people go in and say, and I think that's what it's going to take for people to say, no, I know that your space is empty. Maybe they won't accept your terms. But guess what? That's okay. Because there could be another place out there. I recently got an office and I looked at one place in Beverly Hills. It was cool. Wasn't actually the budget that I wanted, but I was willing to spend a little bit more, proximity to home, yada, yada. And then the guy like ghosted me, right? Because there was a couple things I had issues on. I let it go. Boom. Within 2 weeks, I found another office that was within my budget, everything I wanted, still close to home. But I didn't settle or put myself in a predicament that I didn't want to be because the terms were not agreeable to me. And if people don't understand that one of the characters, especially to build that resilience as an entrepreneur, is understand you got to advocate for yourself and your business and be reasonable and realistic about your initial expenses and what it's going to take to get it going. And that's why those first 3 months were always if I signed a 3-year lease, then those 3 months meant everything for me. Because that meant I could get everyone in there, start making money, get it going.
Well, and there's this new thing. We had somebody on the show talk about pop-up shop. Now it's a huge thing. Yeah. Everybody does it. But I say, why not? And I love how you just threw it out there. A 3-month, a 6-month, a 9-month. Get them in there, get them paying. At least you pay your rent, because a lot of people that have those stores have to pay on it. Right. They may have forgotten that, I think, sometimes. And I think that's what's happening in, and it's completely different, but it's not. What you have to understand is people are going to move in together. Okay, people are going to conserve their money. It's going to happen. People make fun of the guy living at home with his mother, but there are going to be a lot of people moving in with their parents because they can conserve. The parents are going to need help at some point. They may be in a hospital. They have a bill, but it's all cyclical. And here's what I mean by that. You have an employee. Your employee gets sick. Do you pay for him, or do you hire someone else, or do you fire him? What do you do? If you're going to build resilience, you make it okay for him, but you got to have a backup plan because you stepped in when but other people will, and this is why I say some employees are really lazy. So there's a way to hire a good person from the beginning, but then mold them to be eventually, some are not for it, but they could be a manager. And then if they're a manager, you could say, hey, I can have you have a store of your own at some point. Right. You could have those people. And so they level up at some point because they have to pay their rent. They have to pay their family stuff. They have to pay. So it's all cyclical. That's how economy can rebound if you understand you got to make it affordable from the beginning. But some people are saying the product, the service, specialty that I get my stuff from is high. How do I get my profit? And I say this, negotiate. And if that doesn't work, go somewhere else. But find someone, just what you did. A lot of these things start in a truck. How do you get a truck to a big conglomerate? Eventually, you franchise. That
Right.
franchise word, some people don't like it. I say like it because you can make it happen. You just have to have certain parameters, but you're not there at the beginning. But if you want to be a part of a franchise, I say, okay, back to regulation. They will fine you. They want you open because you have their name, not your own name, not your own product. So I say if you did that once, you could do that again, but probably do it with a different service.
So you want to hear a real life story from me when it comes
Yeah.
to franchises? So I've been a franchisee before. Well, this is actually with my ex-husband. When we got together, it was the Domino's Pizza. And ironically enough, so our Domino's Pizzas were up in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, right in Redwood City. Oracle was ordering 300 pizzas a week for their parties. This was during the .com bloom, right? School system was ordering all the pizzas. And there was no energy crisis at this time. This is 2002. This is 2001, 2000. And so then all of a sudden, energy crisis started. .com bubble burst. Now you didn't have Oracle spending on all these parties. In fact, you had Oracle execs in multi-million houses bouncing checks for a $17 pizza, right?
And you're like,
I'm like,
I thought you were,
yeah. And then
they
on
did their
top of
Facebook.
it, and then
that was Mark.
then they came in with healthy eating, took away our school sales.
Yeah.
And then competition. We had Papa John's and, the Bay Area Peninsula. It's isolated. So again, when you're assessing all these different things as a business, and especially if it's got a location. So we lost hard. And then Domino's came in and said.
I want to go back to that. You lost hard because of what?
Because of multiple factors. Well,
it was mainly people not paying their bill.
Well, definitely people not paying their bill.
And reneging on that.
Yeah, and reneging, or just the sales stopped. Yeah. Now I didn't have a demand for the product.
Because they went belly up. We all remember that. Tech bubble, bye-bye.
Yes, it sure did.
But then people rebounded several years later because all those websites began Next Level.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
it was just the IPO thing.
And we pivoted. That's when we ended up going into Metro. So we went out of the franchisee, went into the licensee, scheme model, and and started with one store and built them sequentially. And I think that one of the things that you hit on a little bit, but I kind of want to expand on, it's a very important. Not only what I said, advocating, but definitely negotiating. When I say advocating, to me, that's negotiating. Because to me, I'm negotiating for myself, for my business. And so, but people often forget to people will forget to seek out support from others, mentors or advisors that can actually help them stay on track and maintain a positive outlook, which is something I think you really got to have if you're going to get into business for yourself. Yeah. You have to know how to have a positive, even when everything is going wrong, you have to be able to say, it could be worse. Let's figure it out, right? Yeah. How do you see the benefit of people seeking out mentors and advisors during the process of starting their business in a down economy?
Got it. Okay. Yes. Man, you should wait for probably like the other book coming. Because I say this, some mentors will turn into your competitors. And some investors will turn into competitors, especially right now. People are very desperate right now. I don't know if people understand that. They used to not be, right? Back in 2000, 2010, and right before 2020 happened, people were very sharing, okay? And I know this. But I've had so many of my ideas taken by people I used to trust. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So I tell the person that's out there, I say, look for someone that makes sense, that A, will help you along the way, but have something ready to go so that if, a lot of people do confidentiality stuff, right? Film, it's a huge thing because, perfect example, how many times have we seen a film, right? It's very simple, but everybody knows this. And you see a bunch of them all at the same time from all different studios. What happened? Somebody made a pitch. Somebody said,
Right.
And now they're all getting sued because they're like, you stole my idea. You just had it right? I have that with the script right now. Almost got shown with somebody in Europe, and they could have done it in Europe, and I wouldn't have known about it. But, somebody talks to somebody, and then you figure it out. My point is this. You find people that you could trust. Sometimes you don't know who you could trust. So then you have something ready to go because they may become your competitor at some point. They may want your idea. They may come in as an investor, but they have like 80 other businesses, and then they funnel your idea to someone else without you knowing. And then you go, wait, why is it big in like Euro when I want to now branch out to Euro? Because now 8 years later or 12 years later, when you're ready to go, you're like, oh, it's already there. Louis Vuitton, Gucci. There was a huge movie with love Lady Gaga on that. Saw that. And there was this whole thing happening. And people that thought they were in it long term were not because it got sold out from under them. I say don't do business with the mob because they'll steal stuff from you, but whatever. And they'll, tell you to do it their way. But the point is, and that's where money comes from. So be careful where the money comes from. But I do the opposite of what people say. And they say, well, then you're not a team player. I go, yeah, but you guys steal the ideas. If you could prove you never steal the idea of anyone, then I say, okay, yay. If you watch the movie, I'm already talking about it, but it's called, I can never remember the name of it, but Jennifer Lawrence, in that movie, they renege. They give her the money at the beginning, but they renege. So she's like, what do I do? And then she went in business for herself. She helped a bunch of other businesses. It's based on a real story, by the way, really good. Her and, what's his name? She always does movies with him. Oh, God, he's the voice of Rack. Anyway.
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper. He's in that. If they make a great duo. But he helps her along the way, but he becomes a competitor. She becomes a competitor of him. It's a perfect example of how you may respect them at the beginning, and they say this word at the end. They go, no spoiler, but, well, that's just business.
Right.
So I say this, be careful, because when you're doing business, just like film, just like other, you got to be careful of who may take your idea at some point. And then you go, well, I'm not going to trust anybody. I say, bear to that and watch your back, because if you're creating 100-year thing, will they be in business 100 years with you? You would hope so, but doesn't mean it's going to happen.
It's interesting because, look, some people might say, well, that's being very, very over dramatic. But, you're right. It's not. When I think about Ed Sheeran, songwriters, now they have to. Ed Sheeran won a legal case where somebody said, you took my song, and he had to prove that it was his song. Now he says every time he writes a song, he actually records it. So that he can show proof this was an original idea. This wasn't something I took from someone else. And unfortunately, you do have to. I often recommend not so much NDAs. NDAs are very popular. People think NDAs, but I've never met an attorney who has pursued a legal case over an NDA. A non-circumvent is something that I'm keen on having available to me, so that if I'm sharing a business idea with somebody, they cannot go and produce it, or it lessens the chance. You're creating a barrier there for them to go and just take your idea and run with it, or even circumvent you in, as producers, we're introducing people, then they cut you out. So if you don't want to be cut out,
that so many times.
Non-circumvent.
With film, I've had
genuinely non-circumvent. Mm-hmm. And with business, when you're dealing with high net investors and you're making these introductions, I know differently than you hear of celebrities that will have you sign certain documents just to hang out with them. Certain people with certain people with networks that they have to protect.
That makes sense.
Yeah, if somebody comes to me and I'm a person of integrity, and thank you for saying that. No, I don't. It's like a prenup, right? Like people don't have an idea. If you're smart, a prenup is a smart thing. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But you shouldn't shame anyone for having a prenup. Yeah. And for me, it's a little bit of that planning for the divorce when you're in the honeymoon phase. Yeah. So if I meet somebody and we gel, okay, that's great. But like you said, things can change. Money changes people.
And if
so
you've
I agree
been
with
screwed,
you.
as you have, I'm sure, go get her book. You'll see. But the reality is, that's proof. But don't get screwed in the first place.
Sure.
Protect yourself. And that's what I say, especially now. People are desperate. If they were not desperate, okay, and people go, they're not desperate. I go, yes, they are. Tech, recession, inflation. The reason, and if you don't know the news about business right now, business is really, really in a weird situation, which I say, go ahead and get your idea done now, because it makes sense, because they're going to look for that eventually. Because a lot of big businesses are failing. I'll give you an example. AMC did the stupidest thing. They said, in essence, okay, and at a time where they need people to go back to the theaters, it's like they forgot, right? Now they're charging more for a seat that you sit at.
Right.
One of the other competitors said, yeah, dumb. And they said, come to our place, Hawkins, I think. Shout out to Hawkins, which said, and that's where you have certain business ideas done really and you have CEOs that go, no, that's a good idea. We can make more money on that. You made money on liquor sales. I get that. And if you've bought liquor at a AMC, you made money. That's when they made sense. I met some at the Produce By conference, and they made sense. And they said, this is our profit because we charge this, and people will pay it because you're stuck. You can't take in your own, I'm sure some people do now, because now I see people taking that in. But the point is, there's going to be a lot of business making what I say, ridiculous ideas. That's probably the best way of saying it, or ideas that just you go, what? But you go, wow, you guys became greedy, rather than just make it affordable, make it fun, and those companies that do that will be way ahead.
Yeah. How do you think emotional intelligence can help businesses not just survive but thrive during economic downturns?
Be intelligent and don't be emotional.
That's
I
good. I mean, to some extent, be intelligent, don't be emotion. Take the emotion out of it and conduct business. That's actually quite spot on.
I know what you mean, because you want to be emotionally intelligent about certain things with people.
Sure.
But even people hate the psychology word. You say that, they go, oh, I don't mean marketing, you forget it. And they walk away. I've had conversations like that. I go, oh my God, I'm trying to help you. I think at the end of the day, be emotional, but be in a way like when you have money, be emotional to not walk away from your business. So many people become so emotional and they spend it, and then when their business needs something, they don't spend it. Okay, I come from something. Big shout out to radio. This doesn't happen, but a lot of radio. Okay, and I've seen behind the scenes is a certain thing like at some point, meaning people go, "Oh, that's old school mentality." I go, "No, they just did it like 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Some people go, we don't listen anymore. I go, yeah, you do. I mean, you have an antenna. But they've adapted. Some have adapted, some have not, and some got bought up like iHeartRadio. They really canned a lot of people. But I say, well, that's technology, right? But in a way, are they emotionally intelligent? Yes, they know what people want, but they got to remember what the kids want. So if you're going to be emotionally intelligent, don't be emotionally intelligent at your age and what you grew up with. Be emotionally intelligent with the little kids that watch things on YouTube, watch things on, they don't have Facebook, but if they have Ma's like little thing, they're scrolling, right? Don't think they're not. Find out what they watch. Find out what the teens watch, because I'll give you an example. My cousin, younger than me, was a teen at the time, Snapchat. Before Snapchat became big. And I said, what's that? She goes, oh, no one sees it. I go, oh, somebody's going to see it if they just have another camera. They just take a picture, right? But anyway, and that became big overnight. And I'm like, whoa. And then they got a lot of investors. You got to go where the kids are at, find what they like. Then that'll help you with your emotional intelligence long-term versus short-term.
Where can people get your book?
BarnesandNoble.com.
Okay, perfect. And where can people follow you for our listening and our video or visual audience? Where can they support you, follow you, stay connected?
Everywhere, Aaron M. Sanchez. Find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to see you and
I'm
collaborate
right
again.
with you. Yeah. Great team, by the way. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, and we'll continue it next time.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much. So business, it's a big conversation. There's a lot of information that just came at you, but I hope that you see the value in it. I hope that you felt the value in it. And honestly, a lot of what we talked about, the self-regulation, the emotional intelligence, and just the experiences, by focusing on those as an entrepreneur, being resilient, and it will ultimately increase your chances of success despite the challenges of a down economy. Thank you so much for being with us today. I cannot wait for the next episode. Once again, thank you so much for letting us be unsugarcoated.